On the heels of last week's announcement to resign, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he intends to stay in office until a new leader is chosen by the party. Trudeau's decision to resign follows mounting pressure from within his party and dismal pre-election polls. Joining me tonight is independent Canadian journalist and host of the Wyatt Sharpe Show, Wyatt Sharpe. It's great to have you on tonight. Tracking this from the States, we're seeing the many polls that show a trend of declining confidence from the Prime Minister. A new poll in July 2023 suggested 30% of Canadians considered him the worst PM in the last 55 years. Another poll in September 2024 showed 50% of Canadians felt that the Liberal Party should have a new leader. Wyatt, what do you attribute to all of this?
Yeah, I think people in politics, generally speaking, have pretty short attention spans, and Canada's certainly no exception. I think people, like in any government, begin to feel apathetic, especially given that Justin Trudeau has now been in office for about 10 years or so. You saw something very similar with the Conservative government in Canada that we had from 2006 to 2015. Towards the end of the government with the Conservatives in particular, it wasn't necessarily that some of the policy proposals that were being suggested were unpopular as much as the Prime Minister and the people who actually make up the government, whereas I think this time it's kind of a combination of the two of them. In a lot of G7 countries right now, we're seeing an increasing cost of living crisis. Housing is getting more and more expensive, as are just kind of everyday essentials. And again, Canada really exception to that. And so people are kind of laying that at the feet of Justin Trudeau, given that. And then in addition to that, he just has had over the course of the pandemic, he was someone who consistently would be an advocate for things like vaccines and for things like further and additional lockdowns, which are certainly things that increasingly so were not very popular with kind of the broader Canadian electorate. And so right now, as we're looking to head into an election, Justin Trudeau did something called prorogue parliament, which means that the opposition parties cannot call a snap election until at least March 24th, and then the campaign period has to be about 36 days, which means that we are likely to see an election in Canada at the earliest, the end of April, potentially into May as well. And as of right now, it's looking like the next Prime Minister in Canada could be Pierre Poilievre, who is the Conservative Party leader, who, a lot of people are associating him with Donald Trump, a lot of his policies, but also some of his mannerisms as well. And you've certainly seen some Canadian politicians themselves recently, even down at Mar-a-Lago, meeting with President Trump because they are taking this threat of tariffs very seriously, because it could have a pretty strong impact on Canada and on Canadians.
Yeah, so pretty similar to what we've seen here in the U.S. last 4 years with rising inflation under the Biden administration. So on X, there's a lot of talk around Pierre Poilievre, like you just said. He's seen as the front runner to become the next PM, and currently polling shows he has significant edge over the Liberals. So do you think he has the best shot of taking over the reins?
Yeah, we're going to see a really interesting and historic kind of unprecedented situation play out over the course of the next few months, specifically because Justin Trudeau will resign as Premier, meaning that the Liberals are going to need someone else to take them into the next federal election to go up against Pierre Poilievre. And that person will naturally be the Prime Minister for a couple of weeks, just because of how our parliamentary system of government ultimately works. And so kind of in a literal sense, there will be a Prime Minister in between Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. But then when the next election comes around, a lot of the people who are vying to replace Justin Trudeau as the leader of the federal Liberal Party were either part of Justin Trudeau's government in an official or an unofficial way. But nonetheless, many of the candidates who are vying to replace Justin Trudeau were associated with some of the things that are leading to the cost of living crisis. Just one example of that is the government's price on pollution that a lot of people and economists attribute to kind of the rising inflation that we're seeing right now. And so with respect to that, it's interesting because whoever runs against Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, they can, come up with all of their own policy and all of their own arguments all they want. But at the end of the day, because they were associated with Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative Party are going to be able to consistently just tie the two of them together. And it's really going to play out in a similar way to what you saw play out over the course of presidential election, where as much as Kamala Harris tried to differentiate herself from some of the failed policies of the Biden administration, she had that moment when she was asked on The View what she would have done differently, and in an effort to kind of get an answer out quickly, and it was something where she had to be really ready and equipped to give a strong answer. She said that she wouldn't have done anything differently, and so all of the candidates who are looking to replace Justin Trudeau right now are certainly going to need to kind of have an answer ready to differentiate themselves from him, given what we've seen in Canada in particular ever since COVID-19, with rising inflation and a number of other issues as well.
And I want to switch gears here a little bit now. You kind of talked about tariffs earlier, but we know President-elect Trump is threatening to impose a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico, aiming to curb the flow of drugs, particularly fentanyl and illegal immigration. How might the new prime minister approach the tariff discussion?
Yeah, so I was saying Pierre Poilievre is certainly more politically and ideologically aligned with Donald Trump, but that doesn't mean that he's going to kind of cave in to what Donald Trump is, because Pierre Poilievre is almost as much Canada first oriented as Donald Trump is America first. And so Pierre Poilievre, you even saw recently, came out and said Canada's not going to be the 51st state, even if Donald Trump thinks that it will be. He has, went on the defense in, defense of a lot of Canadian imports like grain, minerals, lumber, oil, all these different products that we send to the United States. And he's really been discussing the value of them and what it provides to the United States. And then also on energy as well, you've been seeing a lot of Canadian officials right now, the Ontario Premier as just one example, who has come out and said that he would even consider cutting off energy to some border states if it got down to that. And if it came down to that, and if the president-elect really ended up going forward with some of these strong proposals that he is suggesting. I think a lot of this at the same time, though, is really just political talk and political theater from both sides, for that matter. I mean, Canada and the U.S. have been each other's greatest ally. We're each other's greatest trading partner. Canada just became the U.S.'s second biggest trading partner, although we have been the first biggest for the long time. And so I think, both kind of parties don't necessarily undermine that. They understand the importance of that. And so moving forward, I think that's going to be at the forefront of some of these discussions and negotiations. I think it'll be harder, though, for Justin Trudeau to negotiate, because Donald Trump will be aware of the fact that he's going to be negotiating with someone different in just a few months. And politically speaking, Justin Trudeau has really put Canada, but also his party, in that kind of awkward position, just because now at this point he's kind of going forward without any strong mandate, so to speak, for what's going to be happening.
All right, well, we are looking forward to who will take over the prime minister's position. Wyatt Sharpe, independent journalist and host of The Wyatt Sharpe Show. Thank you so much for your time and insight tonight.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.